Tara Johnson, for moderating tonight's town hall. I really appreciate that. I met her at a unity dinner this last year, one of many people that I had the opportunity to meet, and I appreciate her joining me tonight to help moderate tonight's town hall. And I appreciate everyone taking the time to be here. It is an honor to represent you in Congress. And as I think about representing Eastern Washington, there's a lot of issues, there's a lot of people, but it's a pretty amazing responsibility as well as opportunity that I've been given. And in the House, I like to think of us as the body that is closest to the people, most accountable to the people. And that's the way that I like it. So I look forward to hearing your questions tonight and answering them. I thought I would just share a few opening remarks. I'll keep them brief so that we can allow as much time as possible for the questions and answers. Tonight we are celebrating a booming economy. I was really excited yesterday to see the news here in Spokane County that unemployment is at 4.9%. It's the lowest in 20 years right here in Spokane County. This has been a big priority after years of a stagnant wages, stagnant economy, to get our economy growing again, because that means that people have jobs, and that means that they have opportunities. America is the land of opportunity. It starts with a job. So the work that we have done through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, lifting the regulatory burden, all of this has been focused on getting our economy to grow again. I represent 10 counties in Eastern Washington. And from the Canadian border down to the Oregon border right now, all 10 of these counties have seen their wages increase. The lowest is at 3%, and the highest is at 9%. Just in the last year. This is good news. There are more job openings today in America than there are people on unemployment. It's the first time ever that we've seen that. And so for so many hardworking men and women right here in Eastern Washington who had been wondering what their future is, today people are more optimistic. Consumer confidence is at an 18-year high, and that gives people hope. And that's what I want for everyone in Eastern Washington. I want them to believe that there's an opportunity for a better life. My mission as your representative in Congress is to restore trust and confidence in representative government and the rule of law. And that starts by getting results for you. And I am proud that just in the last year, I have had 10 bills that have passed the House. 5 have been signed into law. All of these bills have passed with bipartisan support, and all of these bills are legislation addressing issues that are going to make a difference for the people here in Eastern Washington. I am proud to have led the effort to authorize the Teaching Health Center GME program. We are so excited about having the medical schools here in Spokane and everything that means for our community. The Teaching Health Center GME will be the residency side of it, and it is focused on primary care, mental health, psychiatry, and at the very time that we have a doctor shortage, this is the legislation that is going to help doctors do their residency in rural areas, underserved, as well as I'm trying to get more at the VA. I met a doctor just yesterday, and he's here in Spokane. He's been here for 30 years, and he's at Multicare, but he came here from California 30 years ago to do his residency through the UW Rural Training Track, and he stayed. And I was reminded, we don't want our medical doctors to do their residencies in California or the West Side. We want them to do it right here in Eastern Washington. Mm-hmm. And the Teaching Health Center GME legislation is going to help make sure that that happens. I'm proud of the work that we did this year to help rebuild our military, giving our troops the biggest pay increase that they have seen in almost a decade. Earlier this week, I was out at Fairchild Air Force Base. Next year, Fairchild will start receiving 12 additional tankers. It means that we will have 60 KC-135s here at Fairchild Air Force Base. We will be the largest tanker base in America.
Wow.
Which means that Fairchild Air Force Base will continue to play a very important role for the Air Force and its mission of global reach. They're the gas stations in the sky. They're the ones that allow the military to reach the world. I'm proud to have led on landmark legislation for people with disabilities. This Congress, I introduced Able to Work and Able Financial Planning. Both of these bills now are the law of the land. And what this means is that an individual with disabilities can go explore work, maybe get an internship or a part-time job, and take that money and put it into their ABLE account without it jeopardizing their benefits.
Nice.
So often, an individual with disabilities, they may want to work, and especially today as they've been mainstream, they've been through K-12, they're going to college, but yet they're fearful they're going to lose their benefits if they go pursue work. So this is really going to help open up that door. And just last month, just the end of July, Washington State launched its ABLE accounts. So that is good news. My Steve Gleason Enduring Voices Act is now the law of the land. We made it permanent this year. And this is the legislation that will ensure Medicare will reimburse for important, life-saving, life-changing communication devices for those who've lost their ability to speak, that they can use this eye-directed technology. My bill to extend secure rural schools, important to timber-dependent communities, will ensure that timber-dependent communities get the support they need from forest management, for schools, and for roads and law enforcement. I've passed legislation through the House to protect our lower Snake River dams and the Columbia Snake River system. And to encourage the use of renewable, reliable, affordable hydropower. We enjoy the lowest electricity rates in the country because of our hydropower system. I've led on critical forest management reforms. For the first time ever, we have passed forest management reforms and fixed fire borrowing. You know, we're all experiencing the smoke right now. And it doesn't mean that this is going to prevent forest fires in the future, but it's going to help us keep them from becoming so large and catastrophic. This is so important, and it will ensure that our forests are healthier. Over the last year, I've also been a part of leading on increasing the funding for health research. We tripled the amount of money that's going into Alzheimer's research. We've increased cancer research. I helped get $3 billion more at NIH. This is so important. We're on the verge of some amazing breakthroughs. Health innovation, health technology, curing diseases. I want America to lead the world. I want this to happen here so that we all enjoy that as Americans, but it's also going to be helpful to our economy. By leading in Congress and focusing on results, not rhetoric, I've been able to deliver important wins this year for the people of Eastern Washington. I believe that building trust begins by listening. And that's why I'm here today. That's why this is my 12th town hall this year. I listen, I focus on the issues important to Eastern Washington, and then I go and work to get results. So thank you all for being here. Thanks for joining me tonight. My goal tonight is to simply hear from you. It's to hear your questions, hear your ideas, and then have a conversation about the issues that are important right here in Eastern Washington, my home, and figure out what we can be doing together to make stronger families and stronger communities. So thank you very much.
The number is on the screen. You are number 1, and the microphone is right there. So come to the center if your number is 686015. We'll move to the next 686032. Come on down.
My name is Betty Gilchrist. I am on the board of directors at Global Neighborhood. It's a local nonprofit thrift shop that we employ former refugees. I also work in healthcare as a doctor of audiology. This year, the resettlement in Spokane has dropped down to just a trickle. We're doing, this year, I think around 150 refugees have been resettled in this area. And I'm wondering what specifically you can do to help Spokane maintain our legacy of welcoming refugees to our community and including them in this area.
Right. Well, let me say thanks for what you're doing. It is important, and I have been working very closely with World Relief and other organizations that have really been a leader on placing and helping refugees here in our area. I met with them just earlier this month, and as we are working on the appropriations, I was concerned to hear that the numbers were so low. We had authorized and appropriated in Congress at the 75,000 level, and yet I think we're at 16 or 17,000. So going in, so I have committed to supporting the 75,000 level, and that is what the House has put in our budget that we passed earlier this year to increase that level to the 75,000, and I think we're going to have to do some more to make sure that it actually happens. So that's what I'm going to be doing.
How about specifically in Spokane, in this area? Since we do have such a strong refugee community here. I'm wondering about specifically in Spokane, since we do have such a strong refugee community here.
Well, part of what's happening is that across the country there's only been 17,000 refugees this year, and so that's what's impacting the numbers here in Spokane. And Spokane has really done a lot to welcome those refugees. So we need to make sure that these organizations are in place, and then that we have the capability of increasing that, getting more refugees to come. So I think my role is to get to 75,000, and then that would provide more here. Is that right? Does that make sense? No. No? It doesn't make sense?
Okay, so what we're not going to do is call out. We're going to respect everybody's opportunity. This young lady is here at the mic, and she asked a question, and the question was answered.
Well, my understanding is that because the numbers are so low, that's what's impacting the numbers here in Spokane. So if we get the numbers up, then there will be more refugees coming here to Spokane too. Okay?
Well, then my question would be, is that a priority for you?
I have made it a priority, yes.
We will now be calling 686031. Six 686011.
Hi, I'm a Planned Parenthood patient and supporter, and I'm honestly disappointed to see your support blocking Planned Parenthood from Title X under Trump's gag rule. There are 80,000 women in Washington who would lose access to health care if you blocked Title X. Where will they go, and what would be your plan?
Well, the title, under the president's, what the action is at Health and Human Services is that no taxpayer dollars will go to any organization that does abortions. And that is what is at the heart of this. It's long been the policy, it's been the law of the United States of America that there's no taxpayer dollars used to fund abortions. and I recognize that we're not going to agree on this one. The large majority of Americans do not want to see taxpayer dollars used to fund abortions. And what the Title X executive order does is put that into the rules. So then at Health and Human Services under Title X, there will not be those funds used to support any organization that does abortions. Those funds will still be available. They can go to other community organizations, clinics, federally qualified clinics, and even here in Washington State, there are 12 community clinics for every one Planned Parenthood. So there are places where women can go. It's very important that women have access to the health care that they need, and there will be money committed to ensuring that that continues at other places, not those that are doing the abortions.
Cathy. Jeff Martin, and one thing I've really liked that I've seen in your past years, 12, 14 years, especially in the recent, is bringing people together, all people, particularly Eastern Washington, but, and between Democrats and Republicans, bringing people together for a common good. So let's say I will claim when you win and when you are successful, I was thinking, what are the opportunities? I thought back to a great Democrat, Tom Foley. So my simple question is, when you win, would you accept a position as Speaker of the House?
I'm focused on the people of Eastern Washington. I'm working hard right now. I count it an honor to represent the people of Eastern Washington. I'm proud of my record of results. I'm committed to continuing to work to bring people together in this community. The last couple of years, I've been reminded that if we can't even talk to each other, we're not going to be able to solve problems. And I've been encouraged as I've reached out that there's a lot of people that are willing, and even people that I didn't know before or didn't agree with on every political question, but as you come together, you find you have more in common than not. As far as who's going to be Speaker of the House, you know, I have no idea who that's going to be. And for the Republicans, I think we just need to stay focused on making sure that we win the majority, and that is a Republican that will be the Speaker of the House.
Facebook question I'd like to interject.
Okay.
Will you protect Mueller's investigation, and do you support a pardon for Manafort?
Yes. Well, good. That's a question that's certainly in the news today. I have supported Mueller's investigation. I believe that we need this investigation to be completed soon. I think it's important to look at what actually happened, get the facts. So you do the investigation. I think if there were any kind of meddling in the election, we need to make sure that we know that and we take the appropriate action. But we also need to get this wrapped up so that it just doesn't continue on and on and on. And so it was Mueller and Manafort.
Yeah.
Do I support a pardon for Manafort? You know, that's a decision that the president will make.
Hi, my name is Ann Wiggum, and I sat in with a meeting with you. I used to work with aging and long-term care. And we sat in a meeting, about 4 years ago, and the question was asked at that time about Medicare and Social Security. Would you protect it? And I remember you saying very clearly, and you told us the story about your dad, and I remember the story about your dad going up to the emergency room. And you said, my dad would be so upset with me if I didn't protect Medicare and Social Security. The current budget is going to decimate Medicare and Social Security. Those are things that are not entitlements. Those are things that I paid into for 55 years. Those are issues that I expected would be there for generations to come. What are you going to do about that? Or are you going to protect them?
Medicare and Social Security are very important programs. I am committed to strengthening Medicare and Social Security. I don't care.
Your thing that you want to do with Medicare, like right now, I'm with Kaiser Medicare Advantage, loved the program, didn't think I would back in the day. I pay close to $300 a month between my Medicare B and my Medicare Advantage. Between those two, my benefits are really great. If you change those benefits, if you take away my hospitalization, which I don't pay for, if you take away B, which is very minimal, if you change that funding and have me just buy into an insurance plan, that is not going to be the benefit that I am getting now, and it's going to be, I'm a widow. I lost everything in 2008 with the housing market crashing, with everything that happened, and my husband died 2 years before that. I lost everything. I'm doing okay now. I'm still working because I'm 71 and I still need to work. But if you take away those few benefits that I have, if the thought about reducing my Social Security, and I worked hard, those are things that are going to be gone. I have no nest egg. I lost it due to the housing market.
And as you said, seniors have paid into Medicare, paid into Social Security.
Right.
No one is talking about taking those benefits away or cutting Medicare or Social Security right now.
That isn't what I'm saying.
Well,
It's in the budget to reduce. That's the 2019 budget. It's to reduce those benefits.
I don't know what proposal you're looking at, but
Oh, okay, what we're not gonna do, we're not gonna do that. This is your first warning.
My turn.
If you scream out again, we're gonna have to ask you to leave or escort you out. Thank you, ma'am, I appreciate it.
I will provide that
Yeah,
information to your staff. And I've done that by phone.
I have worked at different, Medicare is a very important program. It's important to all of us, our seniors, my parents, our parents, our grandparents. But we also need to look at how we strengthen Medicare, because the average family, the average couple, will pay $100,000 into Medicare over the course of their life. And they will pull out $250,000 in benefits. Okay? So we need to figure, you can see that that is not going to cover the cost. And we need to make sure that we are taking action to strengthen Medicare and make sure that it is secure, and that those that are planning on Medicare have the confidence that it's going to be there for them. Right now, I am dealing with, different aspects of Medicare have been cut. Home health care was cut under the Affordable Care Act. And so I am working right now trying to get home health care restored. I've worked, there's so many examples. The speech generating device for those with ALS, that was Medicare making a decision to cut reimbursements. Doctors in hospitals today, they get paid maybe 60% of the actual cost of seeing someone on Medicare. So, as you go to any hospital in Eastern Washington, any doctor, they can't just take Medicare patients because they wouldn't be able to keep their doors open. Medicare, Medicaid, they pay much less than the actual cost. I am someone that has I have supported, now this is more Medicaid, but ensuring that Medicaid would actually reimburse for the cost of what we have promised those on Medicaid. I think that it is a false promise when we say, oh, we're going to cover all these people. We're going to cover all these people in Medicaid. We're going to cover all these people in Medicare. but then the federal government or the state government doesn't actually pay the cost, pay the bills to the providers. We ask providers to deliver everything that's promised at a reduced level. And hospitals are dealing with this. Doctors try to find a doctor who will take a new Medicare patient or a new Medicaid patient. It's very difficult because the federal government and the state governments are not actually reimbursing that cost. And I lay this all out just because we, as Republicans and Democrats, as citizens of this country, and both parties have committed to Medicare, to Social Security. But we need to look at what we've committed and then really figure out how are we going to fulfill the commitment that we have made and do it in a way that people have the confidence that these programs are going to be here for a much longer time.
Thank you. I want to remind everyone that you have one question because we want to respect all of the people who came here tonight and get in as many questions as we can tonight. So one question, we're not going to do a lot of follow-up and banter because I want to get as many people to be heard as possible tonight. Can you agree to that? Because I know a lot of people came out here from wherever you came from and want to be heard. So thank you for respecting that.
Hi, Cathy. I'm Kim. And I just want to say that I'm very proud to be part of the Cathy Represents Me movement. I'm a small business owner. I have less than 10 employees. I have to say thank you for all you're doing for small business. My biggest worry as a small business owner with 10 employees who provides none of my employees are on Obamacare. I provide insurance for them as long as I possibly can. My biggest question is, I think that small business are the backbone of, working America. I'm worried about taxes and all of the things that might be coming down the pike and what you're doing to help small businesses like mine.
Okay. Kim, I admire you being a small business owner and a woman, small business owner. When we were debating tax reform, I remember talking to a lot of small business owners who would tell me that that they're concerned about the tax burden as well as how they're going to pay for health insurance for their employees. And the tax reform that we passed is going to bring down the rates, the tax rates for business owners to the lowest levels in decades. So for both small business owners as well as the larger businesses, America had the highest corporate tax rate in the world. And as you think about us being competitive and keeping jobs here, we had so many examples of companies that were being bought out by other international or countries headquartered elsewhere. But our goal in tax reform was to bring down both the corporate tax rate, but also that same rate for the small business owners. And a lot of small business owners pay through the individual tax rate. So we have this pass-through provision, and you're going to get to experience it, I guess, the new tax rates next year. But the goal was to bring down those tax rates and then also to give you more of your own money so that you can grow and expand. And on health insurance, I continue to hear the concerns, especially from small business owners, as to the continued increased premiums and the deductibles that employees have, $5,000 deductibles, $8,000 deductibles. So I support and association health plans, that's passed out of the House, across state lines, medical liability reform. I believe that all of these reforms are reforms that are going to help provide you, as a small business owner, more options for your employees. And we need more options for you right here in Eastern Washington so that you can continue to afford and keep that commitment, that great commitment that you have to making sure that your employees have health insurance. So we got to keep working on that. Certainly the debate over how we ensure people have access to quality and affordable health care continues in this country. And how do we make sure individuals can afford their health insurance, and small businesses, and But also, there's important needs within Medicare and Medicaid. There's so many different aspects to it, and the small business owner is a very important part of that. So thanks for being here.
Corbin Darren, you left your driver's license at the table. I just want you to know I have it right up here, your driver's license. Greg asked us on Facebook, is it possible to get federal funds to complete the North-South connector?
Oh, good question. Okay. Well, the good news is that the state of Washington in the last infrastructure package has committed over a period of time to completing the North-South freeway. And Senator Baumgartner and others were a big part of making that happen. At the federal level, when you look at the money at the state level, about half of the state's Department of Transportation budget is actually federal funds. And most of that money goes to the state for them to decide how to best spend those dollars. Next Congress, I expect a major transportation infrastructure package. This year we've passed the FAA, which is important to airports. We passed the Water Resources Development Act, which is the water projects. And next year, the goal is to pass a major infrastructure package focused on roads and bridges and important infrastructure needs. Through the years, I have worked to protect funds within the transportation budget that are dedicated to highways of national significance. And the North-South corridor is one of the highways of national significance. The amount of money going into that fund right now is not enough to build new roads. It's only on maintenance. So the opportunity may be, so the question is there going to be federal dollars? The opportunity that I see is to advocate for more funds within that program for highways of national significance and to get more money right here in Eastern Washington for the North-South Freeway. Yeah. Which, how long? Is that since 1947? We've been dreaming. What year?
So 686004. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you roll that back?
We'll get you next. Okay.
My name is Stephanie, and I work as a physician here in Spokane. And so one thing I encounter a lot and have seen a lot in my work is the high cost of prescription drugs and the cost of prescriptions being out of reach for a lot of patients and people here in Eastern Washington. And I always think of one example of I was doing an ER shift, and in comes a woman who couldn't afford her albuterol inhaler, something as simple as an albuterol inhaler for her asthma, and she had to miss work. She had to find somewhere for her daughter, somebody to go pick up her daughter so she could come to the ER instead of having her albuterol inhaler. And so in the US, we pay much more for the same drugs than people in other high-income countries. And so I have two questions. One is, what is your assessment of why we pay more in the US? And also want to ask if you will help reduce drug prices by taking back the patent monopolies that the government grants to drug companies that allow them to charge us more here in the US.
Okay. My assessment as to why we're paying higher prescription drug costs, I think there's a lot of reasons involved, but we've really taken the lead in health innovation, health technology. I think that is part of it, and I'm proud that we have so many of those companies here. But I also think that I've supported policies that would allow for the importation, for example. It seems to me that if we can import food safely, we should be able to figure out how we could import prescription drugs that are manufactured elsewhere around the world here safely. And then as far as, I had it, what was the second part of the question?
So it's the patent
Oh, the
monopolies that the government grants to
Yes, so there has been, under the FDA, more generic drugs being approved. And so, so there's been a shift, and so I guess the answer is yes, in that instead of protecting the patent for such a longer period of time, that I have supported efforts to move to more generic brands and to allow them to be brought to market sooner in that process, if they should be so, right? But the FDA makes those decisions. I have also, through the years, I've done this for several Congresses now, I've been advocating for transparency and accountability with our PBMs, our pharmacy benefit managers. And they're the in-between. So you have the pharmaceuticals, and then you have the patient, and usually it's the pharmacy. But the pharmacy benefit managers, the PBMs, I believe there should be more transparency, more accountability as to the role that they're playing and the cost that they are adding. I have advocated on a number of bills important to independent community pharmacists. I'm concerned that we're losing so many of our independent community pharmacists. And in many of the communities that I represent in Eastern Washington, they have one pharmacist. And if you lose that pharmacist, you're not going, you're losing a very important provider. The pharmacist is really becoming a person that is helping individuals use their prescriptions wisely and being on the front lines of the healthcare delivery. So I think we need to better understand PBMs and the role that they're playing and their cost structure and the number of times that they're actually increasing the cost. And there's just a lot of questions there. So I've advocated for hearings also to look at that issue. So thanks for the question.
Yes, it's 686030 is next.
What about 18?
We missed one. This one? 286018. Okay.
Hi, my name is Earl. I'm a retired healthcare worker, and I am part of the Cathy Represents Me, I am proud to say. A healthcare worker, being retired, but then I kind of transitioned into home health care. We have worked with you, I have met with you, you know the issues that are going on, and I appreciate the bill that you have introduced, which just went out of my head. It's
it's increasing the reimbursements for.
Yes, and I follow that bill very closely. We are now up to, I think 100. You have 170 co-sponsors on that bill. The United, for the cost of the home care stuff, the oxygen.
Oh, yes.
Okay, it was 170 the last time I looked. I looked, it was 130. We came and advocated with you, the AARC, the RCSW. You met with us, the bill is there. My question is, it's there, you moved forward with it, you heard what we said, but now it's sitting at 177. How many, two questions, how many co-sponsors do we need? Do I go to the other states and ask their respiratory therapists to do as I have done with you? And what is the process when you drop a bill? Where do you drop it? Where does it go? What happens?
Well, this legislation is in response to proposed cuts that not just proposed cuts, but cuts that Medicare made. And so, as a representative, you were one of many that brought this to my attention. I was concerned about this cut, so I joined with others in introducing a bill. So we introduced a bill to counter what CMS, Medicare and Medicaid, had proposed as far as cuts. And it takes a lot of effort to educate, build awareness among other representatives. It's great that we're up to 177. Ultimately, we need 218 for any bill to pass the House. But not just getting the co-sponsors doesn't guarantee that it's going to pass the House. It just it means that you have a majority of the members in the House that are willing to support a particular proposal. But it's a lot of work. It's you can imagine 435 people from every corner of America that are bringing their priorities forward, and you come in with your idea, and you know, they may or may not think it's the best idea ever, but that's where the organizations that you work with, that national network comes into play, where, and I deal with this all the time, where in your case, respiratory therapists will come and meet with me, and they'll talk to me about the issues that are important to them. And that happens all across the country. And I only share this to encourage everyone that that's just part of this process, is meeting with your representative and making sure that they understand your issues, your priorities, and the legislation that that is in front of Congress. There's thousands and thousands of bills that are introduced in Congress every year. I think 700 have passed this year. And 500 are sitting over in the Senate waiting for consideration. So that's why they had to stay in August and work more.
So it is 7:02, so I'm asking that we stick to one question, please. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Monica Stenzel. I teach history at Eastern Washington University. I'm born in Spokane and grew up here. And right now I'm really concerned about our farmers and our manufacturing with the tariff war that's happening.
Yes.
China being one of the main trade partners with Washington State. And our farmers are looking at a tough time selling their products with the tariff wars, as well as the tariffs on aluminum and steel. And I'm hoping you have a plan to maybe step down the tariff wars so we can keep our good economy going and our fabulous $15 minimum wage that we have in Washington State. We need to keep our people employed. So,
yes, we do.
But I hope there's a plan. Tell me about your plan.
Yes, okay. Well, I've encouraged the administration to lead with farmers in mind. I have concerns about across-the-board tariffs. But I also appreciate that this administration is taking action against countries that have been abusing and not adhering to the trade agreement. We need to move from a trade war to negotiating agreements. And President Trump at the very beginning said he wanted to do bilateral trade agreements. That was part of why he pulled out of TPP. He doesn't like the multi-countries entering into the larger agreements. So he supports the bilateral agreements. And you see him with NAFTA, that he is looking at negotiating one with Mexico, one with Canada. As far as the farmers here in Eastern Washington, I'm staying very close to them. I've had the Secretary of Agriculture come out, Sonny Perdue, so that he could hear firsthand from them his concerns, or the farmers' concerns. The chairman of the Agriculture Committee. My goal is to get the administration to move to negotiating the bilateral trade agreements. I sat down with Larry Kudlow and the trade ambassador right at the end of July, and just said we need to get the bilateral trade agreements in place. For example, right here in Eastern Washington, we export 90% of our wheat. 60% of it goes down the river in barges. The majority of it goes to Japan. Earlier this spring, the wheat growers in Eastern Washington went over to Japan, met with the flour mill operators. They came back here, and I was there when they signed a letter of intent. I helped host these flour mill owners just to impress upon them how important this relationship is. And these relationships take years to develop. You don't want to lose that market. We don't want to lose that market. So I've supported the market access program. I've supported getting a farm bill in place. One of the best things that we can do right now to give our farmers certainty is to get a farm bill in place. So that would give them that certainty. And for other manufacturers, I meet with them individually. Sometimes we can ask for a waiver, and we seek a waiver through the Department of Commerce. But bottom line, I want I want America to grow, produce, manufacture right here, and then sell to other countries around the world. But we have to address those barriers, and that's done through the trade agreements, as you negotiate those trade agreements and make sure that it's a level playing field. I applaud the president, though, for holding China accountable. America, we are innovators. That's what we do. China duplicates. They take our technology and they copy it, and then they want to sell it back to us at a very low price. They don't honor the intellectual property rights that need to be honored, and so that is one of the things that's at the core of this dispute right now, is whether or not China and other countries are going to honor the free trade the rules of engagement, let's put it that way, the rules of the road when it comes to trade in this world, and one of those is honoring intellectual property rights.
Of the Facebook questions right here before we move on. Derek on Facebook asks, what is your stance on term limits now that you're the incumbent?
Oh. I believe that term limits takes place every 2 years at the ballot box. And as you know, I have been in Congress now for 14 years. Let's see here. I know 2/3 of the Republican conference has been elected since 2010. And I share that just to let you know there is a lot of turnover. And from my perspective, you really need both. You need the new people that come and the energy and the new ideas that they bring, and they challenge the way things are done. But they're like any job. Any of you that have been in a job over a period of time, you also know that you learn. You learn more every year. And you try some things, and maybe it doesn't work out the way that you had thought, and you learn from that experience, and you take that, and you can apply it the next time you try to do something. And so I believe I also am smarter today about how to actually get things done. And so it's really up to the voters. I think there's a lot of wisdom in the way that our founding fathers set this up. I'm often asked, well, Cathy, a 2-year term, that's not very long. Don't you feel like you're always campaigning? And there is some truth to that. But I wouldn't change the 2-year term. I am open to reforms that would reduce the amount of time that I spend. But the 2-year term there's a lot of wisdom in that 2-year term. It means every 2 years, all 435 people serving in the House have to go back to their districts and seek re-election. It makes them accountable to the people that they represent. Just think about it. You have a very different relationship with me than you do our senators. And it's just, they have a 6-year term. It's a different relationship, and there's wisdom in having both. So I just really cherish the way that our founders set this up.
We have 5 more minutes, and after you speak, we have another question from Facebook, and we'll get ready to start wrapping it up.
Okay, hi Cathy, my name is Linda Gordon. I'm a retired single mom, and I'm raising my youngest has special needs. So my first question was stable account, but you touched on that. And I understand that it's available now in Washington. It seemed like it took forever to get going.
Took too long.
Yeah, and so my concerns now as we're transitioning out of school and into the workforce, do you have any perspective on job growth for the people with disabilities and housing? Not all of us are going to live forever, so I worry about, the day that I'm gone, where will she live?
Right.
And the ability to have safe housing opportunities for our young adults to be able to go into. it's a huge minority. It's not judged by sex or gender, race, but these people are willing to work.
Thank you.
Well, there's some projects even here in Eastern Washington and Spokane that I have visited that are focused on providing more housing, more affordable housing for those with disabilities, and I'm encouraged to see that. And we need to keep building more and providing options for them, having a home, and then for those who want to work, I'm excited that there's more opportunities now. Rather than focusing on someone having a disability and saying, oh, you have a disability, you're not going to be able to work, let's focus on the ability. Let's focus on what every person can offer and really focusing on an individual's strength. So the able to work bill that I've worked on, I'm really hopeful as to what that's going to open up for those with disabilities. I'm excited about programs like the Rotary is doing right here in Spokane, where they are bringing in, they're partnering with SkillSkin and bringing in human resource managers from different companies and having them interview individuals with disabilities. So these human resource managers are interviewing them, asking them what they'd like to do, what skills they have, and then trying to identify what opportunities may be in their particular business. There are some companies that are leaders in hiring people with disabilities. Walgreens is a leader, Bank of America, Walmart is doing more, and I'm encouraged to see that. I've worked with an organization called Project Search, and I want to do more with them, where they help individuals get 3 internships their final year in school so that they can go explore work and see what they're good at. So there's some really good things happening. I just held a roundtable discussion to talk about what those ideas may be to address the barriers for individuals with disabilities to work. But unemployment, even among those with disabilities, is better than it's been for a long time.
Thank you. This is the last question that I'm going to be able to take tonight. But Jill on Facebook asks, what are you personally doing to reunite families seeking asylum at our borders?
I did not support what I saw as far as pulling the families apart. I have worked on legislation. I have voted to keep families together. And what I believe needs to happen is that families should be kept together during their trial. And we need to make sure that we are getting that done as quickly as possible, and then and keeping those families together during that process. And that's going to be what's best. We need families to come together, but we also need a secure border. Yes. And so that is exactly what I was working on in the House. We voted on it. We came up a little bit short, so we need to continue to work on this issue, and it is a priority going into the fall. So I thank you for that.
As we get ready to wrap this up, I would like to thank you, Congresswoman, for hosting this time to hear from our citizens of 5th District. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight and asking your questions. You have cards with you when you came in. If you still have questions and your question you didn't have an opportunity to ask it, would you please write your question and turn that in so the staff can respond to each of you? I would appreciate if you would do that so the Congresswoman and her team can answer your questions. Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.